Hello and thanks for watching today's video. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lainey.
And today we're going to give you a 1-year update on our retirement.
Yes, it's been a year and the year has gone by so quickly.
I can't even believe it. Yeah. Before we get started though, just a little housekeeping. We really appreciate it if you'd subscribe and give us a thumbs up. And also leave us a comment and let us know how your retirement is going, if you are retired, and if it is what you expected it to be.
Yeah, and if you're not retired yet, maybe some ideas that you have on making sure that your plan works out exactly the way you think it's going to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to think that a year ago, basically within the last week, life was chaotic.
Yes.
You know, we packed up all our belongings, we sold our house, we traveled across the country in an RV and bought a house, closed on a house in a state that I had never even been to before.
No, and I hadn't been to in decades. So yeah, it was sort of blind faith that it was all going to work out.
Yeah. So here we are. So what do we want to talk about first?
Well, I would have to say, we just want to give you an update as to how things are going and if it's what we thought it was. And actually, I have to say the reality is maybe a little bit different, maybe a lot different in some respects. It was a lot of planning, but
yeah, retired life is nothing like, I don't know if I'm going to call it normal life. I'm going to call it before retirement life. So, the first thing is you stop earning money.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge adjustment. And so budgeting and, figuring out what life's going to cost and what you have left over to be able to do certain things, that's a big thing. And we spent a lot of time before we retired to calculate all those things.
Yeah.
Do you think that we were accurate?
I would say we were close, but definitely missed the mark on some things and had to reevaluate some things. And we'll go ahead and talk about that today.
Let's do that first then. So we'll start with money. So yeah, there were things that we just didn't even think of when it comes to budgeting. We never had a homeowners association, so we didn't think about that. We do now. And that's not a monthly bill, that's a twice semi-annual bill. So we have had to insert that number into our monthly budget to save for.
Yes. Well, when we first purchased the house, they had us pay 6 months, when we first bought it.
Yeah.
And so we kind of paid it and then forgot about it until we got the next bill 6 months later.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I forgot all about that. So then we just paid it again. And, we decided, I think, recently that we wanted to add that into our monthly budget and just set that money aside rather than get this big bill every 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And the same goes to property taxes. We all know we have to pay them, but making sure to budget it every month and put it in an account that's earmarked for those things so you don't spend it. You know.
Because those are big bills, when you're talking about your property taxes. And if you'd been paying your homeowner's insurance annually, you can change that and pay monthly if you want. And
which we have done.
We have just recently changed that because those bills are big when they come in.
And then it doesn't cost, with our insurance company, it doesn't cost us any more to pay monthly. So it's much easier for budgeting.
Yes.
And one of the big things partway through the year where we got off track is we switched from our food budget being cash to just using our debit card. And that was a disaster.
Yeah. You can spend money really easily when you're just taking out your debit card or your credit card. And so we really had to go back to basics and take out cash again. And
take out cash, put it in the wallet, go in. The grocery store where we go has a there's only a few self-checks that you can even use cash on, so we have to make sure we end up one of those lines. And
Yes.
but we spend so much less when we're paying cash. And I think another tip on that is go to the store less often.
Yes.
Making a grocery list, making a menu for the week. You're very good at that. And then figuring out, what do we need? What do we have? What do we need? And sometimes we'll base our meals on things that are on sale this week, because we can easily modify a meal to
Yeah.
get what's a good deal right now.
And I'll take stock of what's already in the refrigerator that might need to be eaten quickly and add that into the menu, or
Yep.
what's in the pantry.
Yeah. Okay, so the next big thing is home improvements.
Yes.
So, we're handy people. We've always done painting and, basic stuff like that ourselves. And we fixed up our last home, cleaned it, painted it, did a lot of nice improvements to it to put it on the market so it looked its best. But we wanted to do those things in this house kind of early on so that we could enjoy them rather than somebody else. But what we've discovered is, you'll look at a house and you'll say, oh, well, it needs painting, no big deal, we can paint. But things take much longer than you think. And so we found, in the beginning, that I actually started to think that retirement was working on a house. Like
Yes.
that, I got up every day and I was doing that, and I was getting sick and tired of painting and doing things.
Yeah. So what we realized is that for us, especially because we didn't hire contractors to do everything, there were a few things that we did, but for the things we wanted to do ourselves, we can't just do it all at once. We have to maybe get a project that we have in mind that we want to start and finish,
Yep.
and then just stop for a little while. Otherwise, it just starts feeling like you're just a contractor on your own house
Yeah.
all the time.
Yep,
And
exactly. And that is
not that
exactly
fun.
how we were feeling. So
Yeah.
so that's something to think about if you're buying a home somewhere else that does need a little bit of work doing on it. Kind of figure out how you're going to do it and time it out so that it doesn't become all consuming in your life and ruin your spare time, essentially, because you're too tired to do anything else by the time you put the paintbrush down. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, you have to make sure that you budgeted for those things as well. So that might also mean that you go ahead and do some things up front and then save some money and do the rest of them later. And that's okay too.
Right, and that's the same for us. We are not at Social Security age. So there are certain projects that we are postponing until we reach that point, because we don't want it to tap into our more limited retirement budget that we have now.
Yeah, the last thing that we want is to feel like we're strapped for cash all the time because we've done home improvements that we want to but don't need doing right this very minute.
Yeah, exactly. Or blow through our savings.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah.
So the next thing is the traveling that we've done. We've taken some trips and weekenders, and it's been fun this past year doing a few of those things that we've wanted to do. We have a little travel trailer that we bought many, many years ago, and it's still going strong.
Yep.
Yeah. So we like to take that out and about maybe once a month or so.
We try to go once a month for 3 or 4 days, and we've been international twice in the last year, which was something that we really wanted to do. We took a break that was the longest break we've ever taken, so it was about 3 weeks, and that was really fun. So, the first year I would say we probably spent more than we should have on vacations, but at the same time, you don't know what the future holds, and I don't regret anything. We had a great time.
Yes.
For sure.
I would say we definitely spent more than we thought we would. Before we retired, we didn't plan on taking 2 European vacations in 1 year, and so I think that ate into a little bit of the budget, and
Yeah.
that was just something that we
It
did,
just worked out
and-
that way. I think there was a good deal on plane tickets one day, and we're a sucker for a good deal, so we fell into that. Yeah, and even taking out the camper, I mean, that is a budgeted item because the vehicle that we tow with gets, well, it's interesting. It depends where we fill it up, which state we fill up in, but we get anywhere from 9 miles per gallon to 11 miles per gallon towing the camper, which means that we're usually, when we're traveling, filling up twice a day, at least. And so that's quite expensive, plus the cost of campsites. They're not $20, $30 anymore. They're more like $80 a night at most places. So that can add up. So that's definitely something that we have to put into our budget because we like to travel, so we don't want to not do that.
Yes.
Yeah. So the next one is where you move to may be very different than where you came from. And that was a big adjustment for us because
Yes. I would say it's still an adjustment.
yeah, a huge adjustment. Where we came from, we had a very long and I would say miserable wet season, winter, cold, gray, drizzly, a lot of days where you just couldn't do anything. And we did not like that. Lovely summers,
Lovely summers.
but only 3 or 4 months long. The rest of the year was what we would say not great. And by January, we were going out of our minds. Where we live now, it's kind of the opposite. For probably 9 or 10 months of the year, it's lovely, gorgeous, not that cold, sunny, which is what we wanted. But the 2 to 3 months of the year, which is now our summertime versus our wintertime, where the weather is horrible, it's horrible because it's blazing hot
and humid.
and like I think the humidity this week was up in the 90s.
Yeah,
It's- yeah.
Which
And
we're not used to. So that's an adjustment
Yeah.
for sure.
So going outside is much more difficult in this type of climate.
Although you can look outside, through the windows, and it's a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah, and that I would say is better than looking outside at the grey rain.
That's the truth.
So if I had to trade back and forth, I think I would pick this,
Yes.
even though that's an
And
adjustment.
having said that, there are risks of storms.
That's true. Because
So-
we're now on the East Coast versus the West Coast, and we'd never heard of a thing called a hurricane over there.
No, exactly. And so now it's a whole nother.
We check the hurricane
Planning.
forecast every morning from June till about October, so
Yeah.
which we've never had to do before. But that's also kind of an adjustment for us because it alters what we do. And so now that we've lived here for 12 months, maybe 2026 we will plan a little differently. Maybe we'll be gone more at this time of year somewhere else,
Yeah.
somewhere cooler. I don't
Would
know
be
where,
nice.
but
I don't know. Everywhere
know.
seems pretty hot right now, so I'm not sure where you can go. That's cooler.
Norway, Sweden, the top of north of Scotland. I mean, somewhere, Canada, Alaska.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, you see the point. We've kind of had to learn where we're at, and we'll make adjustments moving forward. Yeah.
Yes, and the bugs. That was a big. That's
Yes.
been a big change. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another budget item, pest control. We didn't have to have that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's coming up with things to do that are fun for you.
Right.
And
Well, because retirement, you have all day to fill.
yeah, well, we decided working on the house 24/7 was not our idea of fun.
Yeah.
So there are other things that we'd like to do. So,
And
it's-
some people, when they retire, maybe it's people who retire at an older age. I'm not sure, but some people, when they retire, they don't want to do anything. They're quite happy to do nothing, but that's not us. So we can't just sit around and do nothing.
no.
I think if we have a day or two where we're sitting around at home with nothing planned, we're kind of like, what are we doing? So coming up with local activities, it might just be go to the beach and have a walk, or there might be an art show going on downtown where they close off a street and you can go and, see all the booths and things. I mean, whatever it is, keeping on top of all of the local activities going on and, doing them so that you get out and about,
Yes.
watching firework displays, and I guess a lot of them are now drone displays. And
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
yeah.
So we also have come up with long-term planning goals for ourselves. Where do we see ourselves in 2 years? Where do we see ourselves in 5 years, in 10 years?
Yeah.
What do we want that to look like? We want to have goals so that we have a mark, where we can meet those goals.
I would say this was one of the biggest revelations that we've had in the last probably month or so, was to come up with that. We were meandering through retirement, let's just say, happily, but we didn't really have clear ideas of what we wanted to do and when we wanted to do them. And, we're young enough right now that we're both very fit, both very healthy. We can do a lot of things. But we also have kids who are in their early 20s, and we know that one day there will be grandkids. And we are going to want to spend time with them. So we've kind of set in our mind for ourselves a 2-year plan, which brings us to kind of that Social Security income phase, and then a plan from there into the next 5 to 7 years and up into the 10-year plan. And it really, for me, did you feel good about having that clarity as to what you're doing?
Definitely, because I almost felt like we retired, and that was such a big thing for us. And it took some time to realize, okay, well, now what? Now that we've retired, now what?
Well, there's things that you wanted in life, and I wanted the same things too, but that we weren't doing right now. And so you start thinking, well, when are we going to do those?
Yeah.
And so when you establish that, then you're content, because if you haven't thought about that, then you think to yourself, well, wait a minute, I thought I was going to do this in retirement. I'm not doing it. This sucks. But if your plan is, well, I'm going to do that in 3 years from now, then you're doing something else now. And that was kind of part of this, which I think was...
It was very important, because I didn't want the retirement just to be this thing where it was the everyday was sort of similar, or that there wasn't really a plan for the future, which I think is really important to have.
So thanks for watching. I know this has been a little deep, but if you are retired or you're thinking about retiring and you face similar things to that, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a comment and tell us about it.
Yes.
I'm sure we're all facing these similar challenges as we try to fill up our day with activities. And one thing we never did do is we're supposed to be the pickleball king and queen of the neighborhood, but we haven't picked up a bat or a racket or whatever it's called yet.
And now it's too hot, I would say. It's blazing hot outside, so have to wait for the fall.
Yeah. So please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and leave us a comment.
Yeah. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.